2016. So yes, that's my background. And why real estate? So JLL, actually I did work in London for some time, and that's when I got a call from Anuj Puri saying that, would you like to do something in real estate? So I said, okay, great. Do you have a lot of data? Because I'm working in Prudential, which has got too much data, right? Prudential is the insurance company. He said, no, there's no data. You need to come here, create the data, develop it, and then do the analysis. I said, wow, really? So took it as a challenge, and rest is history.
That's great. So with your experience in both software engineering and real estate, how do you see the intersection of these two fields, and what are the different potential for innovations that are available in this PropTech space?
So software is everywhere, right? Whether it's real estate, whether it's even developers are using it to build houses, banks are using it to lend, you must be using it. Software is everywhere. So I think software is integrated in our daily lives, even from our cars to, my son uses this brush, which gives him some automated statistics. It's nonsense. So I'm not going to comment on software. It's everywhere. I'm going to comment on data, which is what we do, which I don't know whether it's software or not, but given that we all keep hearing that data is a new oil, India never had data. And now we have data. 10 years, 15 years back, had you asked me, can you tell me what is the price of, you just point a finger and tell me what is the price of this house? I said, how do I know? Today we have the answer. You will say, tell me when, how long will this apartment get built? We have the answer. We have answers to everything related to real estate. We can tell you what is the age profile of people. We can tell you which community they belong to. We can tell you the name of your neighbor. We can tell you what the developer has built in the past. We can tell you everything. So if that is software, and we take this data and we make it available on a mobile app, if that is software, we have cracked it. If we can take this data and put it to use where developers can build better and brokers can broke better and lenders can lend better, we have cracked it.
Okay. So, Abhishek, so we have been speaking for quite some time. I think the first time we met, you were, scaling up CRE Matrix, right? And
yes.
CRE Matrix is a fairly established venture, right? Can you also talk a bit more about your new venture, IndexTap, right? What are the different offerings and solutions that IndexTap offers, okay? And how does it work with CRE Matrix?
Okay, so let's answer the last bit first. How does it work with CRE Matrix? So CRE Matrix has real estate data, whether it is an office, whether it's a mall, whether it's a warehouse, whether it is residential. Now, what is IndexTap? IndexTap to my mind is madness. IndexTap to my mind is a revolution, because IndexTap is car wale for home buyers. If you want to compare two cars, go to car wale. If you want to compare two apartments or two projects, come to us. IndexTap is also book my show for home buyers. You see cinema, we all love cinema. It is, if you go to book my show, it will tell you which seats are available, which seats are gone for any movie. That's IndexTap. We can tell you which apartments are sold, which apartments are not sold for any project, right? Book my IndexTap is also, I don't know, Yahoo Finance. You want to know the price of any stock? You go to Yahoo Finance. You want to know the price of any apartment in Bombay, and for that matter, Pune, come to IndexTap. So that's IndexTap. It is that quintessential friend of yours which left you home in college when you were drunk. It's that reliable friend whom you can believe कि ये तो सही price बताएगा. He will handhold me from the pricing to the inventory available to buying me that one dream house, which probably I'll buy once in my lifetime. When we were being introduced, our host, the lady said, what, that home buying experience happens probably once in your lifetime for an Indian average buyer, for an average Indian. You can't make a mistake. You just can't afford to make a mistake. And IndexTap is there to help you make sure that you do not make a mistake.
Super. And so one of the things that you have been mentioning is getting the right price for the property that you're buying or that you're selling, right? Now, can you also explain, for the benefit of our listeners, right, why is real estate valuation important from a financial point of view, both for financial institutions as well as the home buyers?
Okay, so let's talk about the financial institutions first. And for those, this is most important, are the banks, right? Because when I buy my house, the RBI tells the bank that you can only fund 80% for Abhishek Kiran Gupta's house. By the way, the remaining 20% में से some part you will fund, वो अलग बात है. That's a different story. We'll talk about that later. But let's stick to the banks. It's very critical that the loan to value ratio. So my apartment is, let's say, worth 1 crore, and the banks will only pay 80 lakhs. Now, who will determine whether that is 1 crore? If it's a primary apartment, the developer will tell them. But if it's a secondary apartment, it's a resale, who gives the validation verification that the price is correct? That's very critical for the bank, because if they go wrong, NPAs can trickle in, right? So it's critical for the institutions. But let me spend more time on the home buyer, because he's the one who's most gullible. See, banks have a lot of money, they have a big team, they can get around things. But what about the home buyer? He only has friends and family. So why is it important for him? For obviously the same reasons. He should not buy an apartment more than his neighbor. So Prasad, do you know at what price your neighbor bought his house?
So thankfully, I got the valuation done before, and therefore I knew a broad range, right? In fact, since we work in the same space, what we chose to do was we found a benchmark of the rate, and then tried to find out what rate should
Correct.
we
No,
typically buy.
which is fine, which is a broad number. But do you know an average person who's trying to buy a house in an under construction building, or even if it's a ready building, does he know at what price has his neighbor bought the house? The answer is simply no. Does he know at what price does the neighbor rented the house? Answer is no. We have the two answers for you. And how?
Oh.
Because we collect information. So whenever you register your lease deed, whenever you register your sale deed, it becomes a public document. And we buy these documents and we read them and we make them available on this mobile app called Index Tap. So you can go and search for any building in Bombay. Just literally, it's Index Tap. That's the name. Index finger and tap on the phone. You can go and search for any building in Bombay, and it'll tell you the unit number, the floor number, the area of the apartment, at what price was it leased, or at what price was it sold. This is valuation. And why is it important? Because you do not want to buy more than anybody else, because it's only happening once in a lifetime for you, right? So to my mind, this is why valuation is so important, because you only do it one time.
You are right, Abhishek. Very well identified. Another use case that comes to mind, that recently one of my family members wanted to sell a house. Okay, and this was a fairly old house, 24 years, right? And they absolutely had no idea what is the benchmark. Okay, they started talking to a broker, and they had a bare fundamental estimate ki itna hoga, but what should they actually sell for, right? Value extraction maximize ho hi nahi raha.
Oh, absolutely. If there is a buyer who needs to know at what price he wants to buy, so obviously there's a seller also. So I did not mention it explicitly, but if there's a buyer, there is a seller. And as important it is for the buyer to get the right price, it's also equally important for the seller to have the right price. And pehle, it was always the brokers who just said, nahi sir, yahi price hai. My word or the high. It's like my word, because I'm the expert. I'm the so-called consultant.
Market wahi create kar rahe hain, and then they are only ensuring that the transaction happens in the market.
But let me share a small secret with you. You won't believe, home buyer to हमारे clients हैं ही, but interestingly, brokers हमारे client हैं, right? Because they use our platform to convince Prasad and Abhishek that this is the right price to sell and buy. Let's say you're selling your house and you say that my house is worth 5 crores. I'm saying, no, sir, I will buy for 4.5. Now, how do we bridge that gap? How do we bring us together? So now brokers can use the app to actually bring that gap or bridge that gap, right? I take a parallel, and it's my favorite story, especially since you brought up the brokers, and they've been doing this business for donkey's years, right? They're the really experts. So even India always had the Kali Pili and the auto rickshaws and the taxis. We would just go down and just wave our hand and they would stop. We were so happy. We were traveling all over the city. Then what happened to Uber? What did Uber do? Uber came and revolutionized the whole thing. But does that mean the Kali Piris are out of business? Does that mean the auto rickshaws are out of business? No, they joined Uber.
Yeah.
Right? Same way, we are here to revolutionize things for the home buyer. But those wonderful friends of ours, the brokers, the consultants, the advisors, they will join us. They will be part of this new revolution.
Right. So one more question that I had, same coming uh, from a seller's point of view as well as from the buyer's point of view. Can you throw a bit more light about what are some of those key factors that would be taken into consideration when someone is going for a valuation process?
Oh, so pehli baat to go to an expert. Please don't do it yourself. Yes, you can use the app, but don't do it yourself. I think the critical elements that one should look at is the location is very important. A valuation will be different for Malabar Hill. A valuation will be different for Bandra. A valuation will be different for Lower Parel. So location is very important. Number two is age of the building. And Prasad, you specifically said the family or the family friends of yours who struggled to figure out the valuation because it's a 24-year-old, 30-year-old, 40-year-old building. You need to factor in the age of the property. So we covered location, we covered age. Now we also have to cover the amenities. Now look at the new Indians, right? The new young Indians. And structurally, if you look at the average age of the home buyer 30, 40 years back, it would be a mature male or a mature female, right? Today, it's just getting lower and lower. If it was 55 earlier, it's come down to 45. It was 45 earlier, it's come down to 35. What I'm trying to say, this new Indian home buyer wants everything. He wants the garden, he wants the swimming pool, he wants the gym, he wants everything inside his apartment. If not inside, at least in the building. So amenities also become very important. Then, especially in Bombay, maybe not in Delhi or Bangalore, but especially in Bombay, the floor, because we have tall buildings, floor rise, very important. What view am I having? Very important. Do I have the RA view? Do I have Sanjay Gandhi National Park view? Do I have a slum view? Do I have an ocean view? And finally, if I have done some home improvements, I'm not talking about Saddam Hussein's golden tap, but if I've done some home improvements in my house, that also can determine what the value of my apartment can be. So all of these factors can play a role in estimating the value of the apartment. And which is why I insist that everybody who's listening should go to a professional to get this done. Don't just do it and don't listen to anybody.
Okay. So now that you talk about professional, right? Can you also talk about who are these professionals who can help determine the value of a property? Is there some authorization body that deems these professionals, or are these anyone who can say, okay, I can do valuation?
No. So there are registered, certified property valuers, and you can find them. They have to appear for an exam, and there is a certificate around it. So anybody and everybody cannot do it. But brokers, based on their experience and based on what we also commonly call market comps or comparables, they will definitely have a view on the value of your apartment based on the transactions that they have done in the recent past around that area. Because advisors and these consultants tend to be very local and experts in that region. There'll be a Santa Cruz Khar Bandra advisor, there'll be a Sobo advisor. So he will know, but he's not certified and authorized, if I may say so, to give you a valuation report if you want, right? As a hearsay, as a consultant, he can give you a flavor, he can give you an opinion. So yes, there are valuers. And hum to hain. So we are very happy to help all our home buyers to do this.
Now, you mentioned about certified valuation and valuation reports, right? Usually, for the benefit of our listeners, I'm saying this. Usually, this is needed primarily for financial institutions for underwriting the mortgages on these homes, right? So, Abhishek, can you also talk a bit more about what kind of parameters are utilized by financial institutions, and when do they typically look at a valuation report when considering a property for mortgage?
Oh, so we did touch upon this, right? So banks have to do this day in and day out when they're sending out or dispersing loans to individuals. The B2B element I won't touch upon because they need to do it anyways as part of due diligence when they're lending to developers, but that's a separate story. As far as retail valuations is concerned, banks do it day in and day out. The parameters they would consider would be all of those which I mentioned. And then, of course, they will also look at the quality of developer. They look at some legal angle to it. They will look at other aspects as well. So the good news is that if you are taking a home loan, and if a bank is tied up with a developer, that gives you some level of security that the bank would have also done some due diligence, right? Because they would do it much more than you can do individually in terms of the legal aspects, the title clearance, the encumbrances, all of that, which an individual cannot do. So I think that banks do. So that's good news. They've done some part of the dirty work that you can't do.
So let's say if I am a home buyer or I'm talking to a seller of a home, right? And if they present their own valuation report, would that be considered by the bank?
No, I don't think so. Unless, so I don't think we have reached a stage in India yet where we have a brand who has the authority and the de facto accepted brand that yes, if he has given a valuation, it's like you're going to buy gold at Dana Bhai or any of the jewelers, and it's a hallmark gold. Then I know it's true. You don't have to go to a Tanish necessarily, right? I don't think India has reached that stage yet. We don't have a hallmark for valuations yet. I think we are still some time away.
So, in what scenarios would property valuation will always be deemed necessary? Is this only during mortgages, or are there any other use cases where valuation would be required?
Oh, in the B2B side, so there are empty number of use cases, right? Whether you are selling, whether you are buying, whether you are mortgaging or leaning it. So B2B has an empty number of cases and empty number of properties. Where it can be land, it can be offices, it can be warehouse, it can be endless. For Resi, it's important. Valuation becomes important, maybe because I'm migrating to some other country and I want to show that I have these assets. My son is moving, so I want to show it as some kind of a wealth that I have. So there are many cases where valuation reports, many years back, India had wealth tax. So except your house that you currently stay, any other properties you had, you'd have to show it as, value them. So many cases, of course, wealth tax has been abolished now, but there are many cases which can impact an individual
where the individual
investor.
might have to bring out a net worth certificate. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In case of even preparing wills, there's so much where these things can be used, and there are enough number of valuers in the country who can help you do that.
Yeah, so we have broadly touched upon this, but can you talk a bit more about how does property value also determine the down payment? That's where that's the area that we are interested in, and the loan amount.
Sorry, what do you mean by talk about the?
Let's say the valuation report, how does it impact both these amounts, the loan amount as well as the amount that is left for the down payment?
Okay, so let's take an example. Okay, I want to buy a house in, some building in Borivali, and the apartment is a 2-bedroom apartment. It's worth 2 crores. Okay. If the developer is selling it to me, the banks would typically be there with their booth, and it's still easier to value the asset because it's a first sale. But if Prasad is selling it to me and it's a 20-euro building, it's very critical not only for the seller, which is Prasad, the buyer, which is me, and the bank, which is lending. Now let's assume Prasad and I are good friends. Okay. And we are naughty people. Okay. I know that your apartment is worth 2 crores. So do you. But I'm going to inflate it and say that I'm buying. The world is buying for 2 crores. That's my problem. That's not my problem. I love the apartment. It's beautiful. I'm going to buy it for 3 crores. So, Mr. Bank, you have to pay 80% of 3 crores that I'm buying it for. What nonsense. The bank has to establish that it's not 3 crores. Right? So we have gotten into nexus. So we are in hand and glove, and we're trying to fool the bank. And I mean, it's just a hypothetical situation, right? But it can have other stakeholders also. Maybe an advisor is in hand and gloves with you. and he's trying to run a pass at me as a buyer. So India's got some really very wonderful minds. Some positive, some not so positive. So we need to be very careful with that. Now, once you've determined that value, I will only get 80%. So the same 2 crore apartment, I'm going to only get funded by 1.6 crores. Where do I get the remaining 40 lakhs? So previously it would be my own savings, or I would beg, borrow, steal. Sorry, we'll beat the steal. Beg, borrow from friends, family, whoever, right? Parents. Now we have this wonderful elder bro called Home Capital who can fund some part of that 20%, right? So it's very important. आपके लिए भी बहुत जरूरी है, because how do you know that the 40 lakhs is correct? Even you would have to have the valuation in place, right? I'll say, no, it's 3 crore. No, give me 60 lakhs. So it's also important for you to ascertain the right value of the asset.
One question that's linked to this, Abhishek, what are the things that a home buyer can watch out for when this valuation process is being considered? Can he get to know the value and therefore the approximate loan, or in this entire process, where is the home buyer? Does he have access to this report? Does he get to know the number? How does this work? If you can.
No, I mean, if the bank is doing it, he has no access to it. Why should he? If he's doing it himself and paying from his pocket, he'll get the valuation report. But I cannot go to a pathologist and blood and bole jara Prasad ko report bhej dena meri. What nonsense? He's not my doctor. The report will come to me. Yeah, bad analogy, but I'm trying to say is that if you've paid for it, it's your report. But if a bank has paid for it, they will share with you, not the report, but they'll say that this is the maximum we can fund. So anyways, you'll be privy to what the value is.
Largely what we are effectively coming at is that there is definitely a use case for anyone who is about to get into a transaction to do an independent valuation and to check what is the value that I can get or I'll have to pay.
It is also very important. Sorry, 2 points over here. The older the asset is, the more difficult it is to get market comparables, right? Let's say the building where I live in Santa Cruz, it's a 20-year-old building. Transactions in this building happen once in 5 years, right? That's a long period. 5 years is a long period. 5 years, my market can go up and down 2 times, right? Now that becomes difficult then to value an asset. Now this is 20-year-old. Now 45 or 40-year-old building, it becomes more difficult. If it's a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, it's still easier because there are more transactions happening. These are newer buildings, right? So that's the first point I wanted to definitely mention. And sorry, second point, what was I saying? I forgot. But the limited point I'm trying to make is that the older the asset is, the more dependent you are on experts to help you. The newer the asset is, there's more data available in India, including somebody like an index app would have endless data of newer buildings which are 10 years old. But if you come to me and say that, hey, can you help me with a 40-year-old building? Unfortunately, I'll have to put a sorry face. I'll have to dig out for you and really work as any other independent valuer and help you. So it's very critical. Achha, one more thing. Yeah, I remember now. The second point. Let's say I sell my house. Do I have to pay capital gains? Do I have to pay income tax? I have to pay income tax on capital gains, right? We all have to. Income tax has moved your the indexation that they allow you up to 2001, which means that you not only have to give them the value of your asset at purchase and at sale, but you also have to give them the reckoner value so that they can then compare and say what is your true capital gains. And for that also you might have to submit a valuation report.
Okay.
If asked, you don't have to submit it proactively, but if asked, you need to have it ready. So various use cases for having a valuation report at hand.
Okay. So, can you also tell us, our listeners, about what percentage of people typically opt for property valuation, even if they are not seeking a loan?
Very few. Very, very, very few. Because as I said, it's more interesting, more required for older buildings. And believe me, if you are under 35, you are not buying an old building. Okay, unless you're like really, really in love with that location. You love Nariman Point, and you need to walk on Marine Drive every day. कोई option ही नहीं है. You work at Express Tower. It's only then you'll buy at Marine Drive. You think how many people, young people, do you know that buy a new house in Marine Drive, right? Although I love Marine Drive, वो अलग बात है. But what I'm trying to say is that it's so very few. Do it for selling or buying apartments. But as far as the legality is concerned and the title search and the income tax is concerned, then you have to do it.
Got it. So I have one question from the audience. Okay.
Oh, nice.
Right. This is somebody who seems to be an engineer like both of us. Okay. They're asking, are there any forays done in the predictive modeling space for figuring out the valuation?
The answer is yes and no. Why yes? Because there is work going on already, and I can speak for my firm. We are doing it obviously, and there are many more who are doing it. By the way, just to show off, we are also partners with IIM Bangalore, so we are working very closely with them to create one of its kind index, real estate index in India. So yes, work is on. Now the problem, why did I say no? For a good index or for a good valuation or anything to do with numbers and statistics, you need to have good history and credible history. And India doesn't have that yet. We are about 7 years old, so we are still very, very new and we are building it up. So yeah, that's my yes and no. So it is happening, and we should take a lot of pride. Not just my firm, but anybody who's working in real estate and is working on data should take a lot of pride, because all of this data will only help India improve its transparency. The World Bank ranks countries, the 180 countries in the world, on various parameters, and one of the parameters is transparency and ease of doing business. If you have this data, if you have predictive models, you have stats, it just makes it so much easier for everybody in terms of transparency and ease of transactions. So I think we're very proud that we are also working towards the betterment of our country.
Super. In fact, I think India has one of the strongest public data services that are there, right? As a lender, we have been using the India Stack, and could not appreciate this more.
Absolutely, but since you brought this up, India Stat and the one that we deal with is very different. Let me share my agony with all my listeners. Our country is amazing, right? We've got Marathi, we've got Kannada, we've got Telugu, we've got Tamil. मैं सब गिनाने नहीं बैठा हूँ यहाँ पे. But what I'm trying to say is that we are working with every state revenue department. You're trying to get data for every big city in the country, and they're all necessarily in the local language. So and then you have to convert all of that to English. So even if you went to the father of all companies these days, whether it's Apple को छोड़ देते हैं, but we went to Google and we told Google, why don't you convert Marathi to English? And try giving Google converting these beautiful words like cosmopolitan. When Mr. Vikas Oberoi calls his buildings with amazing names, exquisite, Esquire. Sandeep Runwal calls his buildings names with some elegante. अब आप उसको मराठी में लिख के दिखाओ पहले मुझे, elegante written in Marathi, right? And then once it's written in Marathi, you try converting that Marathi back to English. फिर वो elegante का eleganta क्या बनेगा मुझे नहीं पता. So India is rocking. I agree with you, but with this whole vernacularism, it's very difficult for us to give everything in English and make it available. I'm not even discussing scale yet. कितने घर बिकते हैं, कितने घर है बॉम्बे में? Do you know? Does anybody know how many houses there are in Bombay? And if I am sitting here today and saying that on the app I've covered a significant portion of Bombay, and if you put your finger and tell you उस घर का क्या price है, we've done a fair good job. We've covered quite a lot. तो बहुत आसान है बोलना, but not so easy to do.
I agree. In fact, I'm a subscriber to your newsletter, and every time there's a new CRE Matrix index report, right? fairly interesting and great data insights that are shared. Okay, I highly encourage our listeners to do subscribe. You'll get some interesting property data, right?
Prasad, you spoke about insights. Again, मैं हाथ जोड़ के माफी मांगता हूं, I'm not showing off, but we have this IPL, not the cricket वाला IPL. We have our own IPL, Index Share Premier League, and वो इतना popular हो गया है अभी कि developers are putting it on their sales table and saying that we are doing so well. So I tell you what IPL is. IPL is every quarter we rank the best selling projects in every part of Bombay, whether it's a Sobo or a western suburbs or an eastern suburbs or a central suburbs. So, for example, let's say eastern suburbs. Prestige Belenza is a very popular project in Mulund, and it's doing extremely well. So it obviously came as number one. The gold medalist in IPL was Prestige Belenza. Just believe me, Prestige has kept that on their sales table as a validation, saying that हम नहीं कह रहे हैं, इंडेक्स टैब कह रहा है कि हम इतना अच्छा बिक रहा है, हमारा घर इतना अच्छा बिक रहा है, our project is selling so well, so आपको भी खरीदना चाहिए. बहती गंगा में आपको भी स्नान कर लेना चाहिए. So this is the power of data. This is the power of data validation.
Great. We have one more question. Okay. So this is again somebody who is trying to, who was listening in, and there's a follow-up question based on some of the other answers, Abhishek, but they're saying that how is the view of a property impacting the price when in the current purview of construction, properties keep cropping in front of each other, right? And I can relate with this.
इसका तो मैं पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस जवाब देता हूँ. My goodness, and I will take names now. I am a home buyer for the last 5 years. वो अलग बात है कि मेरे पास इतना डेटा है कि मैं हर बिल्डिंग में कुछ ना कुछ नुक्स निकाल लेता हूँ. So I've not been able to buy a house, but I was very close to buying Oberoi Realty's project on JVLR called, I think it was called Prisma. It's right next to Splendor. It's a standalone building and it's a gorgeous building. The building has got 4 apartments on each floor. 2 apartments face the RA, okay, and 2 apartments face the JVLR, the road.
Yeah.
There is a notable, I won't say significant, a notable difference in the price of the apartment which is facing RA, because they've been sold saying कि आपको lifetime RA view मिलेगा, right? Whereas the ones which are facing JVLR, now you will have a lifetime view of the metro. Okay, so big difference. Now you go to Malabar Hill, you go to Cuff Parade, you go to any of these ocean facing, you'll have a lifetime ocean view. Believe me, there are endless people in Bombay or India who love to have the ocean view. They want to sit in the balcony in this beautiful rocking chair, have a sip of coffee or something else maybe, and look at the Bombay monsoon. It cannot get prettier than that. It's like Khandala in your house. So floor rise and view. Bombay के लिए तो बहुत जरूरी है. बाकी का मुझे नहीं पता.
Got it. Vaishnavi, are there any other questions?
Yeah, we have one question. What happens if valuation is lower than the offer?
What happens if the valuation is lower than the offer? Then tear the valuation report and take the offer.
Hope the viewer
that is a very
satisfied.
good problem. That is a very good problem to have. The problem is that if the offer is lower than the valuation report, then you have to fight. Fight with the bank, fight with the buyer, fight with the government, fight with income tax, fight with everybody. So whoever this question, जिसने भी ये question पूछा है, if that is true, literally hide the valuation report and take the offer.
Cool. We have one more question. The question is there a need of doing valuation if the property is new, as in ready to move property?
No, absolutely not. Just make sure that you take a home loan, even if it's some small percentage. Take something from Prasad, even if let them do all the hard work. आप मत करिए. Let them do all the hard work for you.
Cool. We'll wait for 2 minutes if anyone wants to ask the question. Okay, there is one more question. What can buyer do if he finds out from evaluation reports that the price of the property is lower than the price he has paid?
Sorry, no. Now, this is a slightly tricky question because that depends on the time or the year when he purchased and paid for that apartment, right? So, like for example, I bought this apartment in 2001. Today it's 2023. And if I'm getting a valuation report today, it's the value of today, 2023. So I sort of am a little puzzled with this question because I don't think somebody buys an apartment and immediately goes for a valuation report to sell. So I quite didn't gather what he's trying to reach at.
Okay.
Because the time difference will make matter from the time he purchased to the time he's valuing the report. Valuing the asset.
So Abhishek, I think one use case that I'm just thinking at the top of my head, maybe the buyer is trying to get some kind of a loan against property against that, and that's why.
No, if he's trying to take LAP, and if it's a new property, given the time gap between the time it was built to the time he's taking the LAP will not be too different. So I don't think the variation should be too much. I'm just trying to think while I'm talking. If it's a new property, why would the valuation report be significantly or even notably lower than what he thinks the value is? Unless he's done some significant improvement or added something within the office or within the house, which he believes is of immense value. And the buyer feels, he's put the best Italian marbles. He's put the, Simi Garewal ka jo studio tha, it was all white in color. The Makrana marble, and he feels, this is worth 1 crore, and you should give me some value for that renovation I've done. I think that's the only use case where I feel the valuation report might not value that as much.
I have a follow-up question here, Abhishek. If let's say the homeowner is enhancing the home, a lot of times there are balconies and then people kind of break down the wall and bring the balcony inside, right? Stuff like that. Okay. Does that impact the valuation or that doesn't impact the valuation? How does that work? Because I've seen a lot of times when sellers are pitching, they'll say, I have added 200 square feet on top of the registered area, right? Stuff like this.
Yeah. So two things here. One, in your mind, you have added to the seller, you're giving 200 square feet more. So 100% you are legally allowed to say that, instead of my neighbor is 1,000 square feet, I am 1200 square feet, so I should get more. The only problem is the buyer has to buy your story. If he's going to use comps, which now is available on Index Tab and otherwise, and say that he's building with all apartments as per the plan is the same. This is the extension you've done. So the last apartment in this building was sold for X crores, so I'm going to pay the same. So that negotiation will happen. But legally, given that you have extended, legally extended otherwise, I don't know, extended the flower bed, extended the chhajja, extended whatever, I'm not going to get into that. But given that you have done that extension, you're giving me that additional usable space, you are allowed to ask for it. Milega nahi milega is a separate story.
Cool. I guess we don't have any more questions from our viewers also. So we are good to wrap it up.
But this was fantastic Saturday evening. I'm still loving the Mumbai monsoon. I don't know, I'm assuming all my listeners are in Mumbai. But but enjoy the cricket match which starts in some time.
Great. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prasad.
Okay, so thanks a lot, sir, for an interesting session and for being a guide here today. Special thanks to Prasad, sir, for being an amazing host. Viewers, I hope all your questions and doubts are answered. If any are left, you can put that in the comment section in the YouTube video. And stay tuned for many more upcoming webinars with interesting topics. Also, don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. And you can also subscribe and rewatch our webinar editions on the YouTube channel of Home Capital.
Thank you.